This is a conversation between me and Aaron Daly. Aaron is an entrepreneur and founder of Work Permit Solution, a company that promises to use AI to help streamline immigration process. So this is Way of Working podcast. Please leave a like, comment, and check out the partners on the description. And sorry about a little bit of mess behind me. I'm just moving from this apartment to a newer place, and you're gonna hear from it soon. What we can start now is like talk a little bit about yourself, like who you are, what you're doing, and yeah. So let's start with that.
So yeah, I suppose agreed to do this kind of Joe Rogan style and just see how it unfolds between the two
Yes,
of
yes.
us as as presenters and people who've been on many podcasts before.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously my background is recruitment. I would have recruited for IT. That's probably where my love of IT and kind of passion for it comes in.
Mm-hmm.
.NET Suite specifically, if we're going to get into the details. And then I went to kind of construction and was exposed to as well within that realm, I suppose, to the healthcare element as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what sparked my interest for where I am now in, I suppose, my career. So Work Permit Solutions, the idea was taking what was there already as a framework
Mm-hmm.
and applying my knowledge of AI, machine learning, deep learning, and seeing if I can make the process faster and more efficient in terms of
Mm-hmm.
on the applicant side, which is it's a learning curve. I'm sure as you know, there's a lot of hype around AI right now, and it's
Yeah.
it's been around since it's probably 30 years old. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge watching a coffee pot boil. That was
Mm-hmm.
the original implementation or inception of AI, if you will. There's a lot of hype around it. It can be used as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only as smart as we program it to be or tell it to be, really, relatively speaking, on the natural language processing and
Yeah.
information retrieval side, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the other side, with the algorithms, I stay away from that because I'm not a numbers guy.
All right. So talking about like AI, so then in work permission solution. So how do you came with this idea? Like so you say like you built this framework, you wanted to speed up like this process of hiring. And so when you come from the idea of like, okay, let's do this solution, and apply AI and machine learning to it. So like, how was this process, and what you thought like would be the best practice for you to use like machine learning and AI on your own on your own company?
So I guess it's not even, I suppose there's an element of hiring in it, in the sense that when I was recruiting, I was coming across some amazing people, some fantastic profiles that were, I suppose, I'm not going to say ignored, but overlooked, just with companies because they weren't in the state of Ireland, and people
Mm-hmm.
looked at,
Yeah, it's true.
senior managers and things like that, and they looked at this and thought, okay, it's just too much of a headache. And in general, the immigration system in Ireland, if anyone can just visit, immigration.ie, it's a mountain of information. It's a lot to take
Mm-hmm.
on. It's a lot to get through. Even though they've made every effort, and in fairness, I will give them that, they've made every effort to make it streamlined and easy and accessible. There's still a mountain of information, and there's a mountain
Mm-hmm.
of unknowns. There's a FAQ section, so frequently asked questions section, which is helpful,
Mm-hmm.
but there's too many unknowns. It's each case or each individual when they move from their home country, it's different for everyone. So there's only so much information you can put on a site before it just becomes like a wall of text, which is, I guess, certain pages have kind of turned into that, and certain sites have turned into that. But I guess from a usability standpoint, that's probably as good as they can get it, at this moment in time anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I looked at recruitment, and I thought, how do I meld AI, machine learning, and deep learning together in order to create something that, what would you say, to create something different and new that revolutionizes how
Mm-hmm.
both recruitment and immigration, how they're processed,
Yeah.
because they kind of interlock in the sense that, you know, if you find candidates that are going through an immigration process that generally have applied for a job or they're in
Mm-hmm.
the process of applying for jobs, it's the idea was originally based on number one, to give them a fighting chance, because
Mm-hmm.
if anybody's coming from a country with good intentions and they're just trying to improve their lives, and they're coming here to you know, do jobs that you know, that are in demand, that are, you know, skill jobs and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, then there shouldn't be any, or there shouldn't be as many headaches as there are at present
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in terms of the data that they're able to access and the whole the process.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it will come back to delays on um, just on the amount of applicants, the amount of volume that comes. But that's been rectified within government departments, which is
Yeah.
obviously commendable as well. And I know that the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment have they've allocated extra people onto or within the divisions to actually process and expedite employment permits faster than normal, because there was wait times at one stage, I believe, of more than 3 months. I think they've
Mm-hmm.
gotten that significantly down now, but it depends on peak seasons, so it
Okay.
changes
Yeah.
around. So to answer your question succinctly, in a short way, how did I come up with this idea? I guess I looked at what was there at the start. We'll say the access routes, and I decided, or I thought on my head, along with my tech buddy, a former colleague of yours,
Mm-hmm.
how can we do this faster? There's surely a faster way of doing this, or a more efficient way of doing this, or making it more streamlined. And I guess that's where we're at now.
All right.
So currently, still in very much in the early phases of it. At the moment, we're just using the AI elements to actually teaching just the mechanism how
Mm-hmm.
to recognize certain data sets, certain inputs, and just getting it to memorize that. It's a blend of, I suppose, our own data input that we come across on a usual basis. For example, questions like frequently asked questions and auto-generated answers, and just making sure that any answers that are generated are accurate. Because, as you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
AI is still very much, I think we can both say it says from a very secure standpoint, it's very much experimentation, or it's in the
Yeah.
experiment phase. So yeah.
All right. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw it, but AI is becoming kind of like a hot topic in the EU right now
Yeah.
because we have a new regulation. And
Yeah.
how do you think this new regulation going to impact your business as a whole?
Um, it depends. You know, there's a lot of, as you mentioned, there's buzzwords, and I think there's a lot of hype around
Mm-hmm.
AI at present. If we look at the Gartner hype curve, where it's actually at, it's probably topping out at the point of being functional.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, there's a kind of a loop, and it's coming up the other side of it, where, you know, companies can apply it and use it in an ethical way. But the open source, or we'll say, there's a new AI technology or platform comes up every day. You know,
Yeah,
we know
it's
this.
true.
It's a question of the ethics surrounding, I guess, the developers, the platform itself, that
Mm-hmm.
would probably concern me the most. Chat GPT, whatever version you're using, seems to
Mm-hmm.
be fairly secure. It's as advanced as, I suppose, within the public domain anyway, that we can get in terms of being secure and actually being ethical as well at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sources like, I just for comparison purposes, yesterday I tried out Bard,
Mm-hmm.
and compared them like for like. Obviously, Bard is Google's
Yeah.
AI version or AI solution
Mm-hmm.
to ChatGPT, and it will overtake it. And within, I'd say, 5 6 months, it'll just be it'll be the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Google's been followers around a lot longer than that of ChatGPT. So
Yeah, it's true.
it'll overtake it in a very short amount of time. Probably not even months. I would say weeks. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just something that they kind of, I think they were kind of behind on the implementation times, but with their scope, with their power, with the size of their network, the size of their web crawler, especially, and how long it's in existence, it'll overtake it in no time. But on the ethics side of it, on the regulations, I think it comes down, a lot of it will come down to the individual user and how they use it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true.
it's how you apply it. It's like anything, I suppose. You know, comes back to the person, why they're using it, how they're using it, and what they intend to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But my intention was to just, or still is, to use it in a way that makes everything more efficient from every standpoint, both from a business, clients, candidates, whoever it might be, all while maintaining, you know, as much privacy and maintaining guidelines, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously um, being in cohesion, complete cohesion to law and regulations at the same time, especially around GDPR, because obviously that's a huge area of law that you don't want to breach. I'm not going to say you don't really want to breach it. You really don't want to breach that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, coming back to the person, how you apply it, how you use it, how you train your model.
Yeah.
That's what would apply to me. But uh, how the regulations will impact me, it depends on, I suppose, governmental responses, EU responses,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
laws, and how that kind of, I suppose, transposes into Irish law.
Yeah.
So, I by the rules is the short answer.
I believe that that's his regulations. It's that is one word that's driving this regulation. And this
Yeah,
word's called copyright, you know.
yeah,
Because EU, you know, like the European Commission is a bunch of bureaucrats. They actually make laws for copyright people. That's the truth. That's the truth. Like Article 13, Article 14, GDPR. This is all to protect copyright rights. You know, like
yes,
and now when you come to generative AI, so they train data from like public available data. So you don't know actually how ChatGPT scrapped their data. So probably they
yes,
scrap this like from some dodgy ways like Google does, you know, that
yeah,
Google indexes websites, and the way that
sure.
they do is to scrap that their website data to indexes
Via
and to do
crawlers, sure.
exactly for via crawler. And so for me, it's more like because this is gonna hurt like copyright people that like copyright companies that deal with music, deal with video, deal with like with business like journalists. That's why
Text to
they
speech,
yeah
exactly. Yeah,
that's why
sure.
they're doing this regulation. It's not like they're protecting people. There's not like they're protecting individuals. They don't care. What they do care is like who paying them, and who's paying them most is who's doing the lobby, and who does the
Yeah,
lobby in Brussels is only this kind of people. You know, it's not
okay.
us. You know, like for example, OpenAI they only went
Startups,
to Europe now because there's this
yeah,
regulation. You know, so
yes,
like they only lobby right now, but then you have all of these all the older companies like a bunch of billionaires that throw money on lobbies, and that's what's going on there.
yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, is the way it is. That's the way I
yeah.
view that the thing.
I
You know.
agree. I agree to an extent, but you know, on the other side, it is correct that, you know, when Elon Musk originally, correct me if I'm wrong, when he originally founded OpenAI and then kind of bowed out of it, he said that
Hmm.
he's always been controversial. He always puts
Yeah,
out
he's
things
a
that
controversial guy.
gain action, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
it evokes emotion in people, and they share it and they like it. And he's incredible at marketing. He'll say a
Yes.
statement, an offhand statement, and it'll go around the world within minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
he's obviously hyper intelligent man. You know, and what he's done with Twitter and how he approached it, how he's kind of revolutionized everything there. I think it was quite impressed by how it turned out actually in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thought it was going to be just something that fell flat in its face, and seems to be just on the up, which is,
Yeah.
I suppose, a positive thing to see from a business standpoint, purely from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I think where the issue of the likes of GDPR, the likes of regulations come in, um, you know, you're right in the sense that it's a case of, you know, who can lobby the most or who can lobby the fastest,
Yeah.
and that's why we have ChatGPT and OpenAI. But I think a certain level of validity has to come into the question when
Hmm.
these groups are put forward. They have to be able to tick boxes that are saying,
Yeah.
uh, invasion of personal information, extraction of certain data from certain sites. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we know that, the more questionable AI sources
Mm-hmm.
uh, can do some pretty unethical things.
Yeah.
And again, I think that just comes back to the individual user, whoever's using them, how you
Mm-hmm.
want to use it. If you're using it for productive means, if you're using it to improve your own business, to improve the lives of others, to streamline processes, then fine. But there's always going to be the element of people that use it for, I guess, the wrong reasons, and that's obviously a concern that when it comes into government level, they want to see as much evidence as possible
Mm-hmm.
that negates that kind of activity from occurring. But some are going to, a lot of them, not even some, a lot of them these platforms,
Yeah.
they're going to slip through the net because they can be
Mm-hmm.
produced at a faster rate than they can be closed down. So I guess that's why the biggest ones that we're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
uh, namely OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever version you're using, 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
4.0, it doesn't really matter. Um, they seem to be the kind of the mainstream now before Bard kicks in. So when Bard kicks in, I think within probably 2 years, uh,
Mm-hmm.
AI won't even be a buzzword anymore. It'll be like the internet, as we
Yeah.
refer to it as,
Yeah.
just Google.
Yeah, it
So
basically, I've been talking to friends right now. Like, if they're not learning how to do machine learning programming, they're not going to be able to work in the industry anymore, because there's going to be the norm. You're going to have to be able to at least read machine learning. That's the point. And
sure.
but and back into this thing about regulations and stuff, like, I don't see why people talk that ChatGPT as a problem. Like how Italian government that saw this as a problem, how the European Union saw this as a problem. Because if people don't remember much, but like few years ago, there is a company called Clearview, and this Clearview company, what they did was they scrapped the whole internet for photos. They scrapped
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram. They take
Did a
photos of
massive data
everyone.
scrape.
Yes, they
Yeah.
create a massive data stream, but this didn't come much to the news because Clearview was selling this as a computer vision solution for the police. And
Wow.
then that's why they didn't complain, because this is a massive breach of your GDPR
GDPR
laws.
guidelines and
But they
sure,
don't
sure.
care, because now the police is going to be able to actually identify drug dealers, identify criminals. But at the same
Yeah.
point, they have your photo there without your consent. So if the
Yeah.
problem is to protect the user, they first of all, European Union, European Commission, and the US, they moving very late into this AI world, because I've been seeing this since 2015. Like I worked with a division of IBM that was using machine learning and artificial intelligence in 2016. So in the Clearview, I remember that like there wasn't regulation for that, and
Wow.
it's just weird for me that just now, that with ChatGPT, the European Commission came over and say like, oh, let's regulate AI. And it seems very weird that it's something there, like, because I believe it's more because of copyright. That's fine. and
Yeah, sure.
yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is. And yeah, well,
Do you
you
think
can't do
it's
much.
it's more related to copyright based on the company who brought it to the table, or do you think it's more related to regulations and laws?
I think
What would be your take on it?
it's more about regulation laws, because, for example, if I put any audio on my website nowadays, if a company complains about it, like I'd
Yeah,
say like Sony Music complains about I put like some music on my
copyright.
website, I have to pay them like the copyright, because it's part of their own like a metadata of copyright music.
Yes.
And this can't be they can't actually track this on the generative AI, because generative AI, what it does is they scrap all like patterns of music and generate a
Yeah.
new music for you. But then
Yeah.
I believe that generative AIs for music, they can't do, or for images as well, they couldn't be subject to copyright, because one of the things that exists in the world is the patterns of like how you paint, how you make a music. You have the chords, you have all the stuff that make a music. So what
Yes.
generative AI does, it's just to see,
Compiles them.
just to compile them, just to see how this pattern works, and then to generate a new music,
Version of it.
a new version of it.
It's like they paraphrase with everything, but you
Exactly.
know, again with the platform in question,
Mm-hmm.
depends what platform you use. There are
Exactly.
thousands.
The thousands
The people
platform
don't realize
nowadays.
that. They only think that says, oh, there's a Facebook version of it, there's a Google version, there's OpenAI, there's
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT. There are thousands upon
Exactly.
thousands. Even in the likes of like a design, just a design software I use, Canva. It's very, very common. That has elements of AI in it.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft Word has elements of AI. There's,
Exactly.
it's in everything, and people just have
Mm-hmm.
come. It's only kind of come to light. I feel maybe in the last, it's really kind of risen. I
Yeah.
would say in November 2021, when ChatGPT kind of rolled out.
Yes, November, December, yeah.
I think everybody started talking about it then, but it's been
Yeah.
around for a long, long time.
Oh, way more
It's really
time than that, yeah. Yeah,
so.
the transformer was I think it was written in 2017, and were Google researchers who wrote about the transformer algorithm that powers OpenAI today. So that's
Yeah.
I agree with you. I believe Google will surpass OpenAI because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
their researchers who made this thing. So they are way more capable of doing this type of
Yeah,
generative AI.
I think they were just a little bit behind timeline and
Exactly.
didn't
Yeah.
expect to launch as fast. But their web crawler is second to none. They have the
Hmm.
biggest web crawler, so the amount of data that they're able to scrape
Yeah.
is it's incomparable. It's
Hmm.
you're talking about, you're comparing tens of thousands of gigs to
Hmm.
versus maybe 100 gigs.
Yeah.
That would be by ratio scale. But again, I think you're right in the sense that the regulations and the laws surrounding it does come back to copyright, a lot of it.
Hmm.
For example, the Balenciaga ad,
Oh
the
yeah.
generative AI that came out,
Hmm.
we could ask questions around that and say,
Yeah.
was there an infringement? Was it, who's going to
Hmm.
pay the fine?
Hmm.
Or is it a case of it was just paraphrased from a legal
Yeah.
standpoint? Although the faces were recognizable, but they were generated by
Hmm.
something that's not a tangible product. So you can't sue, uh, you can't necessarily sue a piece of software that actions
Yeah.
something. You can sue the company behind it, but the string of code that executes
Exactly.
that command, you can't sue it. So that's where you're going to probably see a lot of court cases arising out of this
Oh,
that will
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
solicitors will love it. They'll have a great time doing this. But your next trend you'll see is AI specialist solicitors. So
Hmm.
I think that's something that will roll out.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I want to. Okay, so I want to go back a little bit, like just backtrack a little bit on AI regulation right now. And I really wanted to go back to immigration just a second because I just remembered one thing that I wanted to talk to you. It's about how can I say, it's about like the impact of immigration, right? Because I have to backtrack, I have to go back in time a little bit because I in 2018 2019 I started a research that pretty much what the research was, to get all the public available data, process that, and define and try to figure out what was the best odds for a person who's non-European to move to any country of Europe. That's what I was doing, and I've done some researches, and I saw there was a lot of like research about impact of immigration in US, but I couldn't see much about this in Europe. You and with the work permit solutions, you guys had done some research right there like that, or if you're not, like, what do you think it is the impact of immigration on businesses like in Ireland and in Europe?
Um, I suppose I can answer this quite succinctly and quite clearly, especially coming from a recruitment background.
Mm-hmm.
What we're experiencing now is, if you pardon the pun, it's history repeating itself. So, similar to the crash in 2008 where everything went belly up,
Mm,
people started immigrating, they started leaving for,
mhm,
they started going to Australia, Canada mainly. They were the kind of main stalwart areas. We're
mhm.
seeing this occur again.
All right.
And I think the people sometimes misunderstand or take out of context immigration into the country of
Mhm,
skilled workers. For example, we now have a brain drain,
mhm,
um, whereby talented people are coming out of college. I'll give you statistics: 71%
mhm.
uh, of nurses who are graduating are considering just moving or either going to the UK,
Oh my god.
Canada, or further afield. So that's a shocking
That's a lot.
statistic.
Yeah.
That's nearly three quarters. Don't quote me on the source, but I just came across it. I'll probably be able to dig it out somewhere, just copyright, just in case. But that, as well as the amount of, we'll say, inflation in the economy, people are saying, okay, things are too expensive. I'm not going to be able to afford a mortgage, so
Mhm,
I'm going to go to somewhere that pays a better wage. I can
mhm,
save and maybe come back in 5 years' time, 10 years time, when things have calmed down, and then I can start afresh, so to speak. But
mhm,
I think what a critical factor that a lot of people miss is that immigration is a net force for good in Ireland, because
mhm,
uh, a lot of the jobs that you see being executed in multinationals, for example, or even at
mhm,
the lower kind of levels, we'll say in jobs that aren't as skilled, we'll say, for example, people that work in meat processing factories, they're done by
mhm,
non-nationals. And people have to also bear in mind that these types of visas or these processes,
mhm,
they're subject to advertising regimes. For example, labor markets needs test
mhm, mhm.
must be advertised online for 28 days mandatory under DSP, which is the Department of Social Protection, and EURES. So it's not just Ireland, it's Europe as well.
Yeah.
So people have ample opportunity to look at these roles as they arise. They can apply if they want. If they're not selected, that's fine. Um, but I think that net force for good, absolutely, we are experiencing a brain drain.
Mhm,
There are two core industries, I would argue three, but two core industries that Ireland really, really has a massive problem with. One would
mhm,
be healthcare. Obviously, we have a aging older population, um, similar to that of, I'm not going to try quote statistics, but we have a
mhm,
lot of, I suppose, elderly people that are getting on in their years, so to speak, and we need people to assist with their needs as they are.
mhm.
The lack of those, because people just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's why we see so many healthcare assistant jobs being advertised. They're
Mhm,
constantly being advertised. And the other sector that will just be within the remit of healthcare, that's the lower levels. It goes right up to consultant doctors, it goes to nurses, it goes to absolutely everything.
mhm,
And given that, and the fact that there's, I suppose, again, a mass emigration of people that are just coming out of college and becoming newly qualified, that's creating an even deeper pool, whereby there's no candidates left to
mhm.
actually fulfill those needs. So we have a massive need for immigration from skilled multinationals,
Yeah.
um, that are coming here and, I suppose, adding to society, caring for our elderly or disabled people with disabilities,
Mhm,
um, and I suppose that's just in the healthcare side of things. That's one industry in and of itself. Um, and the second one would be construction. So everybody knows that in Ireland there aren't enough houses. I think the goal for 2030 was originally quoted to be 29,000
mhm.
residential units. The reason I know this off the top of my head is because I used to recruit for construction.
Alright.
It was originally 28,000 units, residential units per year, to meet the 2030
Mm.
housing for all scheme. Now it's gone to, I think the last time I checked, it was about 42,
Oh my
and I
god.
believe it's risen since. And we're not meeting that. And it's not because of, obviously, it's simple to say that, okay, there aren't enough people. It's multifaceted. It's down to inflation. It's down to the
Mhm,
cost of steel. It's down to the cost of concrete going up. It's down to, if you were to look at a data set,
Yeah.
it's not just as simple as it appears to be on the tin. But the prime driver in all of this is people.
Yeah. Yeah.
These jobs can't be executed without people. And I think that a lot of I suppose is a certain subsect of society within Ireland that think immigration is just all bad news and all negative. It's not the case. It's sure, there's going to be, like any country, every country has a problem with immigration.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
any first world country for sure. There's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's going to be a mix of absolutely everything within that. But for the industries that we've spoken about in particular, the ones that are absolutely critical to I suppose society and the country running, so to speak, people often forget that these things, they have to be executed and they have to be carried out, or else there's going to be massive problems and
Yeah.
ramifications down the line. Infrastructure, for example, hospitals, building new hospitals, schools, that all has to be taken into account. And everybody's just doing their best to obviously process these. And this kind of dials back to the reason why I started my venture was, okay, I looked at it and thought, tech, recruitment side, how do I meld these together and create something? I'm not going to say reinvent the wheel, because there's probably not a couple of people doing it, but how do I meld these two elements together and streamline the process, so to speak?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
we're still working on that, is the short answer. But immigration impact in Ireland, if someone's coming here and they're contributing to society, they're doing a role that has been advertised, they're doing a highly skilled role, then I don't see why anyone should have an issue with that. I think it's a net force for good, absolutely.
It's true.
So it's just my personal take on it.
Oh, nice. That's great, man. That's great. I totally agree. To be honest.
Sure.
All right. And yeah, so I feel like I don't have any other topic here. Do you have any question and one topic you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what was, you mentioned, I know that you were former IBM, and then you kind of ventured into Higherbrain, and I was, Higherbrain. I've ventured into Work Permit Solutions. I've kept that kind of broad, and I feel like you've done the same. So I think there's elements where there's a little bit of crossover between us, but obviously we understand the size of the market, as so to speak, the market, quote unquote. And what we do is similar but different. But
yeah,
you've kind of created Higherbrain with the idea of, I guess, rendering down a CV or an application to meet specifications of a job advertised. Would I be right in saying that, or I'm off the mark, or?
No, yeah, it's definitely that. Yeah, so Higherbrain's idea that came over from CloserStack. So CloserStack was a startup I created to do what Work Permission Solution was doing. He's doing. So the idea of CloserStack actually started in 2015. So in 2015, I was talking to some friends on IBM, and then one of them was like, well, it would be nice to have like some sort of system where I could ask something about immigration and it give me like the answer. So I put there like, what am I, what's my conditions, yada yada yada, and the system would bring to him like, okay, so you need to do this in order to get this visa,
step by step kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a guide or something like that. And then fast forward to 2018, and then I start to work on this idea, or like actually 2018 I founded a different startup called Polang. It was kind of like a marketplace for exchange courses, so like language exchange course. There is a lot here in Ireland, so like there's a lot of Brazilians who buy these exchange courses to come to Ireland to learn English and then get their student visa. So we wanted to create a online marketplace for that. And then during this online marketplace, I revert back to the idea to understand like what is because there is a lot of Brazilians, they have like this difficulty to understand like what is the path to get the student visa, what is the path to get the working visa.
Is it stamp one? Is it stamp
Yeah,
two? Is it stamp
exactly.
2A? Yeah, sure.
And
Okay.
then was the prerequisites for that, and then because of that I decided to go through this machine learning approach, because I was already studying with machine learning, and then I decided to do that, and like, okay, let's get this available data, let's figure out like what I can do with that. So I figured out that what I could do was to show like what's the odds of the person to move to a certain country depending on certain conditions and criteria. And then I created Closer Stack, was more like an app just to show this information. So you put your information there and it would show something like that. I tried to transform that into a company, but it didn't work out, because I think that the approach that I started wasn't an approach to create a company, right? And then I realized there is other problems as well, that not just the candidate that's coming from Europe, but then for the companies as well to see these candidates. And that's why I created HighlyBrain. So HighlyBrain is a totally different solution now, where what I wanted to do is to get the candidate who have a bad CV and make his CV better, because 80% of people who apply for a job, they don't even get seen by the hiring manager or the HR.
I would agree with that. I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
I would say actually a higher percentage.
yeah.
I would say on average, you know, with the platform that we're gonna be creating soon, it's again similar but different to what you guys have. The Candidate Academy. You know, from as a former recruiter, you're going to look at this as if you're manually looking at CVs. By the way, this is not the like some multinationals whereby they're using software to skim for keywords or to scrape for keywords on CVs. Like you said, if you've a weak CV and if you were sending it to like a multinational, a person isn't going to be looking at that. It's going to be a piece of software scanning for keywords, and then collating the data and putting it into a file of 1, file 2, file 3. That kind of an approach. Whereas if you're a smaller company, a smaller recruitment company, and you're manually screening CVs or going through them or skimming them, you're on average, I've calculated it down to about 11 seconds. So you're going to look at a CV for 11 seconds and then you're go or no go. That's
true.
That's the approach.
Yeah.
You know? And again, it's not down to the individual recruiter. You know, they obviously have their own opinions. They look at the person's CV and go, they might say to themselves, "This guy's amazing. Like, they're extremely talented. Their experience is fantastic. They tick all the boxes." But the company prerequisite might be, or not even prerequisite. The company taboo subject might be, oh, they need to already be in the country, or else it's just too much of a headache.
Yeah.
So you probably come across that as well with, you know, the startups that you founded with HighlyBrain, with with especially coming out of IBM as well. You can probably see that when they receive a CV, it's put through a piece of software before it goes anywhere, and then it's sent to the departments. So
definitely.
I feel that I've only had this discussion with our other business partner, which would be Confidential Recruitment, and he's baffled by it as well, because the amount of talented people that they might have a poorly constructed CV. It's about the person. It's not really necessarily about how it's presented. It might be presented poorly, but if you can speak to them and hear their story, their journey, their footprint, or I suppose their fingerprint, so to speak, that's what kind of sets it apart from a talent that might be, or a candidate that might be a no from a yes. And that's it's relatively easily done if you just apply the right principles to it. And I guess what you're doing is a fantastic approach to doing that. But on the immigration side of things, you probably come to figure out that it's not just if I tick box A, B, C, 1A, 1A, B, 1C, that you'll arrive at destination X. It's multifaceted, and each case is just individual. So that's I suppose that the approach that we're trying to use at the moment is, if we can create something that streamlines we'll say from application or looking at an application, if we can create
Mm-hmm.
something that streamlines that to delivery
Exactly.
of, we'll say, the polished article or the finished article, that
Mm-hmm.
being the candidate up to speed. They know within construction sphere, for example, there might be car regulations. That's a big
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yours is health and safety regulations. That's really what it kind of dials back to, systems and networks and things like that. Or
Definitely, yeah.
it might be healthcare settings. If you can, if you can help them present themselves in that light as best as possible,
Mm-hmm.
then you're obviously giving them you're giving them the best shot at being seen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
both on a manual screening standpoint, or both from a manual screening standpoint, and
Mm-hmm.
keyword skimmer, which is essentially what any type of software can be. Cheap piece of software that company
Yeah.
uses to just skim for keywords, and so which is sad in a way, because you see CVs. I've seen tens of thousands of CVs as a former recruiter. I mean, tens of thousands. And some of them are absolutely amazing. They're stellar CVs, but the idea was, or the outlook at the time of, not necessarily the company, but the outlook would have been, unless they're in the state, we don't know anything about the recruitment side of things or the immigration side of things. We're not disagreeing that the CV is amazing, but they're just not here and they've been passed over. And that's, I suppose, something that I want to eliminate, and that's something that I guess you want to eliminate as well, which I think is again a net force for good, because there's a massive need. Look at
Exactly.
the amount of jobs that
Yeah.
need to be built. Look at the
Yeah.
amount of homes that need to be built. And look at the amount of people on trolleys in hospitals at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta
Mm-hmm.
you gotta dial it back to brass tacks.
Yeah.
Um, from that standpoint, it takes people to do these jobs. You could argue that okay, there aren't enough houses, so where are the people going to stay? But you need people to build houses, so there
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
It's like a paradox. So, there's always a way around these things. But yeah, that's our take on it.
It's
But
true. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah. Look, thank you for like thank you for like going through that, and thank you for saying that higher brain is a good solution.
yeah, sure,
And
of course it is.
yeah, but I believe like that for me, when I try to do the solution for fast tracking, I believe I should have had first contact with people on the hiring and the talent solution
Yeah.
before. I believe that was my great mistake back then, and I feel like that that's a great job that we're doing, because you first have like all these contacts, and then you can go forward and say, look, I you know me, I give you like some good people to work with already, so give me I have these other guys here that just need like to apply for a job for a visa. It's okay,
Mm.
it's simple, we can do that, and then that's good. I think that's a great work, and
Yeah.
it's amazing, like for me it was more like because I came through the candidate perspective, and I never had this hiring
Approach
expertise
or
in the
outlook.
hiring
Yeah,
approach.
sure.
I couldn't actually figure out how to sell it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, even at that, I mean, from our standpoint, where I guess where we're at is, we understand, as someone who's been on both sides of the table,
Mm-hmm.
conducting interviews, from, I suppose, the hiring end, and being a candidate myself for
Mm-hmm.
various companies. You get to see both sides, and you
Yeah.
get to see how the process fits together, and it's not always as simple as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess on the immigration side of things, why we kept it, or why we named it the way we did, is because this can hopefully, we see this expanded into something,
Mm-hmm.
that might one day just be software as a service.
Mm-hmm.
It can be multifaceted in that point. It can, I suppose, pivot as time goes on,
Yeah,
into
definitely. Yeah.
something that's completely, let's say, in 2 to 3 years time, when everyone just thinks of AI as Google.
Mm-hmm.
It can pivot into something that is just completely different to what's in existence at the moment. And I'm sure you guys at Higher Brain are the same.
Yeah,
So it's just
exactly.
we
Yeah.
had that same kind of approach at Work Permit Solutions too.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's good to see that. It's good to see this solution there, and I think that's it's great to see that actually, and not just like hiring, but other companies are looking for to improve other people's like visibility,
Yeah,
and make them more visible for like for these companies, and then they can use the power of, of work permit to actually go to these countries.
yeah,
That would be
of
great.
course,
Yeah.
of
All right.
course.
Yeah. Say something. Sorry.
No, no. I mean, like I said, there's crossover with what we do, but I
Exactly.
think that it's a net force for, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose, highlighting people's profiles and actually helping them present themselves in the best light possible and be seen by the people that should be seeing them. Because, like you said, I would argue that 90% of applicants are just passed over, be it through human skimming or screening CVs, or a piece of software not picking up enough keywords and generating enough points for them. So if any company that's using an
Yeah.
approach to address that,
17 hours.
then that's a net force for good in my book. That especially when they're a talented candidate that fits the job perfectly. I don't see any issues with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. Okay. So I don't want to finish this before I go through a philosophical quote because I always do that.
Yeah.
So I thought I was reading a lot about Immanuel Kant this follow month, and that is actually I think there's a quote that's perfect for this conversation because there's one quote that he did that's called like the greater the obstacle, the more
Mhm.
glory in overcoming it. And I believe like that's resonate a lot like of what we're doing because it's a huge obstacle of people who wanted to go to get a job in another country that's they are coming from not for outside Europe, and
Mhm.
in this context, like I how do you think we can create a more inclusive environment that celebrates this sort of like this sort of kind of worker that coming from another country and trying to delve into Europe?
As in, how do you actually create that, or
Yeah, how do you create the environment to overcome these obstacles of immigration, or like
I
how do you
think
think it is? Yeah.
I think I suppose it's one to mull over, I suppose, but on the forefront, it should be something that I suppose senior
Mm-hmm.
managers. It comes down to a number of factors. It comes down to maybe the age of the directors. They might be from a certain era. If it's a multinational, it's likely that they're younger people, so they're going to be more. Um, the word inclusive is a little bit too broad, in my opinion. I think what when it kind of comes down to with multinationals or hiring multinationals is cultural diversity more so than inclusivity. Inclusivity just
Mm-hmm.
it's including what is it goes it's too
Yeah,
expansive and
it's
too
true.
broad.
Yeah.
you know when it comes to cultural diversity, how do you factor in, or um, how do you harbor that type of environment, or how do you create it? It's down to the people that are actually, I suppose, in the higher ranks or the senior ranks of the company to, I suppose, to roll out employee handbooks, for example,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and incentives saying that, okay, we're a background of multinationals. We're not just all from the one place, and that we
Mm-hmm.
can all learn from each other, and we can, like I said, we can meld well together, and especially if in IT, for example, you'd
Mm-hmm.
see teams that are from all over the world,
All right.
and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
actually produce some of the best software that we've seen to date, and they're not all just from one place. They're multinational teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, massive corporates. They're multinational teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's true.
and I think if you can foster that type of an environment within a
Mm-hmm.
company, if you can create that kind of an approach whereby it's welcomed, then you're onto a winner for sure. But it's the case of, how do you change I suppose the mind frame that's there at the moment. It is changing for sure. It's come on an awful lot in the last few years. I'm sure you've had your own experiences of, let's say, difficulties or complexities within companies or
Yeah.
organizations. But I do think that it is evolving, as globalization happens before our very eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You'll always have a subsect, like I said, you're always going to have a that small uh, niche kind of clan of society that they're anti-immigration.
Mm.
That's fine. You can
Okay.
leave them to their views. It's everyone's entitled to an opinion, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But on the surface of it, when you look at it and you actually get it back to brass tacks, we need people
Sure.
to
Yeah.
build hospitals. We need people to look after our elderly, or we need people. It comes back to we need people. They're
Mm-hmm.
leaving.
Yeah.
Our natives that are skilled, qualified, educated, they're leaving, which creates a void, and that void needs to be filled.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what has to be understood. But I guess if a company is to cultivate what I would, I suppose, title as or categorize as a you know an environment that welcomes multinationals, then it comes down to the people that are in the senior ranks and has to come from a top down approach, as opposed to bottom up. And it could be bottom up too, with suggestions from
Mm-hmm.
new hires, like they can educate people within their ranks, the people that they work with, their colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
um, about how things work in their country of origin. Obviously, they're bringing their own story to the table, and that can be told, and that's something that should be, that's something that should be respected and admired for any company, for anyone coming into a company, that it's a leap of faith. I mean, if you're leaving
Mm-hmm.
your own country, Ireland did this en masse when there was a famine. A couple
Yeah.
million of us left. So sometimes I read articles and I'm like, that's kind of rich. When we had a reason to do so. We're a small
Yeah.
company, we're a small country. Um, we had a reason to do so, but we still did it. So we
Yeah.
can't really put the finger at people that
It's
want to come
true.
here for better opportunities, that want to improve their lives and add to our society and improve their own circumstances. So
Mm.
yeah, but a quote I find really interesting, and this is something that you quite like as well. If we're going down the stoicism route,
Mm-hmm.
in sterquilinis inminitur, and in filth it is to be found, is the direct translation. But
Mm.
when you dial it back, that's the Latin translation. When you dial it back, is what you need most is where you least want to look for it. And if you're someone that's in the other side of the world, no matter what country you're in, and you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at this, the idea of emigrating or leaving your country, or immigrating into Ireland, or Europe even at this point. But just bear in mind, Ireland's now the only English speaking country in Europe,
Yeah, it's
uh,
true.
since the UK left. Then that's it's arguably a massive task and a massive undertaking as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be the thing that you might need it the most, but you might want to do it the least.
It's
So
true.
you know that's one thing to bear in mind. But if you have a good partner, shameless plug, Work Permit Solutions, we can help you out with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Hey, Aaron, great talk to you, man. And how do people can contact you?
Website, email, all our social channels. I think we're on your webpage as well. You're on ours.
Yes, yeah, highway, yeah.
And if we've, obviously there's, again, we've candidates that would fit more into your segment, and you probably have candidates or clients that would put more into ours. And there's constant traffic. You can see it on the analytics side as well. You can see the traffic between the two sites, which is good, because
Mm-hmm.
it bolsters both businesses that are, again, trying to achieve what I think is a very similar outcome, just in a different way.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah,
Aaron,
yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you for your time, man. And